Hello and welcome to the Masterclass on intuitive eating. So we are going to be discussing intuitive eating today. We're also going to be discussing flexible dieting as well, the difference between the two and what kind of will work best for you. So going on to the first slide. Why is this not working for me? This is so annoying. Hello and welcome to this masterclass on intuitive eating. So we are going to be going through intuitive eating today, and we're going to also be going through flexible dieting and the difference between the two and what's going to work best for you. So firstly, intuitive eating is trusting your body to make food choices that feel good for you without judging yourself or the influence of diet culture. Okay? So the thing with intuitive eating is that we don't look at food as good or bad. Okay, we just look at food as food. Obviously, some food is more nutrient dense and some foods are more calorie dense. And intuitive eating requires you to stop looking at food as good or bad and to actually listen to your body and eat what feels right for you. Okay, so with that, there is a mix between, I suppose, intuitive eating and kind of building a better education around food as well. Like if we are to eat what feels right for us, it may not be the most optimal either. So it's trying to have the balance between the two of like intuitive eating. Do you know, if I listen to my body and what I wanted, I could be eating pizza every single evening. I could be deciding that I'm not going to eat any vegetables because I don't really feel like it and it's not really what I'm feeling. And there's a certain extent to that we obviously have to listen to our body and, you know, respect that, but also have the better education of going, okay, well, maybe I do want the pizza, but maybe I can add a salad to the side so I get my nutrients in and I balance up the meal a little bit better. So there is the side of intuitive eating with the side of good or bad food 100% makes sense. However, with the side of eating what feels right for you, sometimes, personal opinion, I think that we need to have a little bit more education as well, that sometimes we have to make more informed decisions on it also. So the main thing that I like about intuitive eating is that we are relearning how to listen and appropriate respond to hunger cues and satiety cues. So it's actually giving us a chance to listen to our body and go, well, how are we actually feeling? Are we hungry? Are we full? And what kind of way we're feeling in that side. So with that, obviously, it's hard to see intuitive eating and dieting coming together, because if we were to intuitively eat, we're listening to our hunger and fullness cues, which means when we're hungry, we are going to honor that hunger cue. However, with dieting, because we are eating less, our body's going to be a little bit more hungry, and we actually, in a dieting phase, will be hungry sometimes, and we don't listen to that hunger cue. So there is a little bit of conflict between, obviously, intuitive eating and dieting. And with intuitive eating, weight loss is not the focus. The focus is on, you know, the balance with meals and, you know, listening to and honoring your hunger and fullness cues. And if we were to intuitively eat, we would always have to listen to the hunger cues. That's why intuitive eating and dieting don't really go hand in hand on that side. So, however, when we talk about dieting, a lot of people think restricted dieting, and that's like, you know, the likes of like plain chicken and rice. And that's why everyone talks about online is like, oh, you don't have to eat plain chicken and rice in order to make progress. It's looking at it of flexible dieting. So flexible dieting allows us to have foods that fit within our specific daily macronutrient targets, like we have set. And this way of eating provides dieters with the freedom in their food choice, which may help keep the weight off over time and create a positive and healthy relationship with food. So whereby we still allow the foods into our diet. It's not like we restrict certain foods in order to make progress. And it just makes it work a lot better for us in that way. So then we come to flexible dieting as well. Like, you know, having that flexibility in our diet doesn't allow us to have our favorite foods. However, with this flexible dieting, you know, if we were to talk about flexible diet and be like, oh yeah, we can eat whatever we want, as long as it's within our calorie targets, are we going to be satiated and like feeling full and satisfied with meals from just eating the foods that we enjoy? Example. And when I say foods we enjoy now, like obviously I'm talking about more so the foods that we enjoy that aren't that nutrient dense and fulfilling, right? So let's say the likes of the chocolate, like we could eat chocolate all day every day and we could still lose weight. However, are we going to be satiated from that? So with the flexible dieting, we're looking at still allowing and enjoying our favorite foods and having that flexibility in our diet. However, it is working off that 80-20 rule. So 80% whole nutritious foods, and then 20% like soul foods is what I love to call them, rather than like treats and stuff. And like I find the soul foods is a lot better of a word, because like it brings joy to our soul and it's foods that we enjoy. And yes, they may be less nutrient dense. However, we focus primarily on getting that good 80% in, and then we can enjoy the 20%. So can we mix the two? Can we mix intuitive eating and dieting? The short answer is no. If you say from the scientific, I suppose, definition of intuitive eating and the definition of dieting, no, you can definitely not mix the two. However, sometimes listening to our fullness and hunger cues is important and something we should learn to focus on for our long-term health. Okay, so with that, when we're dieting, we're not really listening to our hunger and fullness cues, because sometimes we're still hungry after a meal. Sometimes, our body's telling us we're hungry, but we're trying to, reduce a little bit of body fat, so we might be a little bit hungrier. However, when we are in a dieting phase, and there's times whereby we might have meals out and we might not be able to track our food properly and effectively, this is where our intuitive eating can come into play. So we are still using these skills and learning these skills when we have that step back from tracking, because we're not going to be tracking for the rest of our lives. It's a tool and it's just a tool. However, when we do come away from it, and let's say we have a meal out, we have times that we aren't actually tracking. Let's say we're gone away, we're at a wedding, for example. We can use these events to build more of our intuitive eating cues and awareness. So it's the side of like slowing down your meals, chewing your food properly, drinking water throughout, and asking yourself the question during your meal, like, how am I feeling? Am I full? Am I, still a little bit hungry? And it's actually slowing down your food and taking your time, like chewing your food properly. And some people don't do this. How many times are you eating something in front of the telly and you're not even realizing you're eating? You're just literally, and next you're like, oh shit, that's gone. I wasn't even focusing on it. So with the intuitive eating, with the dieting, there's a little bit of like a mindful eating part as well. And like that's nearly something for a whole other day to go into. But it's something to be aware of intuitive eating and dieting don't really connect together. However, there is times when we are dieting that we can still try incorporate those techniques in at the same time. The main thing is like remembering that with the fullness cue, and that's one that a lot of people struggle with the most, is actually tuning into our body while we're eating the meal. A lot of times you will find that you could be out for a meal, you could be so soaked into what's happening around you that you don't realize you're actually full until you're like, oh my god, I'm so full, and it's like uncomfortably full. We've all been in those situations before. So it's just like being aware of that, of when you are for social events, it's not a case of being super fixated on anything, but it's like just taking that time to reassess and ask yourself, am I still hungry, or am I just finishing this for the sake of it? And that can be a big question, and something that's really helpful to ask yourself. Is it that I'm just finishing this because someone's here beside me, or mom or partner made this and I feel like I have to finish it to impress them? And that can be a big stress and piece on it as well, that it's important to remember that this is your body and this is for you. And it's a side of remembering that just because something is in front of you doesn't mean that you have to eat it. Listen to your body. Are you actually just eating it for the sake of eating it, and just to I suppose give feel more acceptance from somebody else? Or are you consuming it because you want it, because your body is hungry for it, in that kind of way as well? So there's a few little questions to ask yourself on that as well. So with this, I suppose you're kind of asking what is the best thing for me right now? And I suppose the main thing to look at, and that we go through in the assessment when we first start, is what is your main goal? And from this we get a lot of information on your current situation, your current challenges, current obstacles, and from this it's easy to figure out what our struggles are. So that will lead into your current relationship with food. Have you got a good relationship with food? Have you got a very skewed relationship with food? And is that a main struggle? With that, then it's the current food patterns or behaviors. And with these kind of things, it's important to remember that sometimes, even if the goal is fat loss, if the current relationship with food isn't great, the main focus needs to be on the relationship of food to fix that first before you can look at losing body fat, because we can lose body fat, we can do all that, but if our relationship with food is still skewed, we're going to be in a worse position after dropping the body fat than beforehand. So with that, that's why it's so important in the assessment that we do chat about things and figure out what is right for you. And like, obviously we've had girls before that have come in to the program and have just focused on the relationship with food first, and more of that intuitive eating and getting used to that hunger and fullness cues and more, I suppose, awareness of that as well. And then from there, following on with what needs to be put in place after that, when we build up that relationship, and then we take it from there. So look, there are a few questions to ask yourself with that, and just, I suppose, a bit of an awareness about intuitive eating, flexible dieting, and where we can go from there as well. If you have any questions, do not be afraid to pop me a message, or if there's any other topics that you want covered, please let me know also. Enjoy your day, and I will chat to you soon.